Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. It's almost 12 here in the United States in Boston. Good morning to people if you're in Europe, or good afternoon to people elsewhere. Today, we're going to have a very, very important discussion. It is our Truth, Freedom, Health open house every Thursdays at 11 a.m. EST. And then at 8 p.m. EST, which will be tonight, Eastern Standard Time, we host open houses. And at 8 p.m., it's an open house and a town hall. Today, the discussion I want to have with you is a deeper discussion to a follow-up I did, a video several days ago called The Swarm, How the Few Control the Many. You know, for me, it's been a very, very deep question for most of my life. And everyone, I'm sure, wonders about this. And most people probably resolve themselves into complacency to acceptance. And I've never been able to accept this. It's just like, people who built airplanes. They couldn't accept that only birds could fly, right? And that's what motivated them to create airplanes. And many of the great inventions or discoveries are motivated by people wanting to overcome the existing status quo. So the existing status quo today believes and makes you accept, well, there's always going to be a few people that are going to exploit the vast majority of people. And that's just the way it is. They'll exploit workers, they'll exploit you, they'll exploit children, they'll even rape and kill children. That's just the way the world is, okay? They'll even maybe, as some people have, said, they exploit people into some very, very horrific ways. And you have just got to accept that, all right? And I can't accept it. And most of the people in our movement for truth, freedom, health, in fact, everyone who's come to a point in life where they realize that they actually want to change the world. And some of them may have initially followed the left or the right or the Republicans or the Democrats or the Labor Party, wherever you are, some party. They think like you join a party and you change the world, or you file a lawsuit. And eventually they come to find out that those are all dead ends, because those in power that I call the swarm are a highly interconnected, decentralized, multiracial group of people who are a very small set of people, but they work together in some quote unquote telepathic ways, which means they all move in the same direction. No different. The reason I call it a swarm is if you ever see sometimes in the night sky at twilight, you'll see birds moving, and there'll be, tens of thousands of birds. They're still one group, but they all sort of look separate, but they all move together. That's called a swarm. In fact, in system science, it's called swarm intelligence. The elites actually are a swarm. They're not the Rockefellers. They're not the Jews. They're not the Rothschilds. They're not any one location. They're spread out all over the planet. They're highly interconnected. They're decentralized, and they have a singular aim. In fact, they have three aims: power, profit, control. And the reality is this few set of people are able to manipulate, exploit, and take advantage of nearly now 8 billion people. And you have to come to ask, how is this possible? How do they do this? It's quite incredible that a small set of people are able to manipulate vast majorities of people. And no different than people thinking it was impossible to fly, only birds could fly. We did figure it out. We figured out engineering principles called Bernoulli's principles, and we built aircraft, and we overcame, gravity, and we figured out how to fly airplanes, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that our movement, it's the only movement on the planet with the scientific work I've done over the last 50 years, has discovered the principles of how the elites, a few of them, control the many, and then what we can do to win. So this is as revolutionary as being able to fly. The only thing that we need is, unlike getting wings and a fuselage, etc., to fly, in our case, to overcome this and destroy the swarm, we need each one of you to raise your consciousness. The individual raising their consciousness to understand the system dynamics of power, profit, and control, and how we can make it into truth, freedom, and health is the way out of this. So that's why we hold these open houses. So those of you listening on social media, you can go to vashiva.com/orientation, and you can sign up to join our open house. We have a number of people who are here in our open house, a little bit close to 60 people, and we will have a Q&A session. But getting back to the swarm, what we teach at Truth, Freedom, and Health, our Truth, Freedom, Health is an educational movement. It's a community. It's technology. It's software. It's all of those things put together in an infrastructure that is enabling people to learn how to destroy and shatter the swarm. So what is a swarm? Let me just take you to a diagram. Those of you I recommend, if you go on YouTube or if you go on vashiva.tv, you will find something called the swarm, how the few control the many. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to share with you the end result of the, I drew an image, in real time. It looks complicated, but let me just walk you through it. The title is called The Swarm. John, I assume everyone can see this, how the few control the many. Okay, so what I did was on the left side, you have a little box that says the elites, about 10,000 of them, little stick figures. The question is, how do these people control, in this big circle, the 8 billion people, the system? And they convince people not to look to leaders among themselves, like a Malcolm X or me or you, for that matter. How is it these people always get people here, exploit them so they can achieve a goal? In system science, every system has a goal. So on the upper left, you see power, profit, control. That's what the goal of the elites is. Well, how do they do this? Well, the way they do this is the elites' goal. To achieve this goal, they need these 8 billion people to be fat, unhealthy, right, dumb, ignorant, happy, entertained by the people over here on the left. But primarily, they need people to be divided. And everything they do is to divide you. Okay, the trans issue. Okay, we have the woke crowd, the anti-woke crowd. Okay, now we're going to talk about obese people. Okay, we have the fat phobia crowd and the anti-fat crowd, right? Every issue is to divide these people. And that's what we live in. And this is one of their goals, to divide people, make people isolated, disconnected. People don't communicate neighbor to neighbor, make people feel helpless. Well, I guess that's just the way things are. They also want people, this is one of the most important things, they create problems and division, and then they want you to look to the elites, the obvious establishment of the Clintons or the McConnells or the Obamas or the Kings and the Queens, the Bushes, or the not so obvious establishment like the Trump, the Kennedys, the Tucker Carlsons, the Gandhis, all of them who come from them. So this is one of their critical ways. They want you always looking to them. And if you're doing that, they know they're achieving power, profit, and control. But if you're starting to follow me, Dr. Shiva, or you look at people like Malcolm X, or you start following leaders like you who learn these principles, they don't like that. It's dangerous to them. That's a disruption. And most importantly, they want you to be disorganized, and they want you to be star fuckers. What is star fuckers? Star fuckers is a term that, in fact, the people in Hollywood use to call you when you go up and want to get an autograph. They go, oh, look at that star fucker. They want you to pay obeisance and bow down to them. So how do they achieve this output? And again, I'm doing a quick version of this. Again, I recommend everyone go look at the Swarm video. I walk through it step by step. But over in the elites, they have about 600 billionaires. Remember, these 600 billionaires profited. They increased their wealth by $2.3 trillion during the pandemic. And connected them, notice it's a swarm of people. Let me sort of zoom in here. Well, it includes academics, the 100 university presidents from Harvard, Oxford, Yale, IIT, MIT, all over the world. But all these 100 people, by the way, they're all interconnected. They all play at the same golf course. They all go to the same restaurants. Their children's all go to the same private high schools. They all go to the same equestrian shops. They're an interconnected, tightly knit group. So you have the 100 university presidents. You have the top 100 CEOs of the major nonprofits, the Clinton Global Initiative, the World Economic Forum. You go down the list, right? The Gates Foundation, etc. And then you have government, the 100 senators, prime ministers, the couple hundred prime ministers, and their advisors. And they're all interconnected with these NGOs as well as with academics. They're one phone call away. Henry Kissinger just said, I can call anyone. And if you think about Henry Kissinger, he was an academic. He's with an NGO. He's with government and think tanks. He was part of all of them. Belfer, the Stanford Internet Observatory, the CIA, all these research groups, okay, think tanks. So all of these people are dedicated to power, the academics, the NGOs, the government, and the think tanks. But they can't exist alone. They need the top global 2000 CEOs, right? The CEO of Target, the CEO of Exxon, the CEO of Anheuser-Busch. Then they have their big pharma companies like Pfizer, big ag like Syngenta. And then they all have all their investment companies, right? JP Morgan, right? The Epsteins of the world. They have the Fed and the central banks. Again, all of these people are a handful of people, but they're a swarm. They're interconnected. They move together. And then this is where all the profits made. And to control people, they need Hollywood. They have their celebrities, they have their agents, they have media, they have Disney, Viacom, Facebook, Twitter, Elon Musk, right? Zuckerberg. And then they have the social media influencers from Joe Rogan to Tucker Carlson. And they're all, again, they're created by the swarm. No one becomes a social media influencer with 10 million followers without this swarm's approval. And then they have news and CNN. And so how do they control these people? Well, what they do is they have two wings that's front facing. They have the obvious establishment of politicians, okay? The people who just say, we're going to start war, we're going to do this, we don't give a damn about you, right? But they have more insidiously the not so obvious establishment that comes once in a while to tell people when the masses are moving away to build independent movements, they bring in a Trump, lock her up, drain the swamp, or Kennedy, complete liar. You look at everything he says. He comes from a family of liars, a family of mafia, or they create people like Gandhi, okay? And these obvious and not so obvious establishment people push policies on the 8 billion. They push propaganda, but they also create false heroes. But the end goal of all of this swarm effect is to make people divided. And this division and unhealthiness leads people into dysfunctional stages, obesity, physical obesity at your own biological level, endocrine disruption, cancer, death. We right now, as I know, if you go, as I shared before, the number of people in other industrialized nations is going up. The United States is going down. It's been happening since 1980. They need disease and death. Why? Because these diseases that are created by the swarm lead to greater power. They lead to greater profit. So you create obesity, now you sell obesity drugs. And then the other really crazy thing they do is they normalize a dysfunction. Oh, being fat is great. Being, endocrine disruption, there may be a certain spectrum of sexuality, but with endocrine disruption, you may have more people questioning their sexuality. Well, you normalize that. The swarm says, hey, Bill, over at Anheuser-Busch, the investment company say, hey, we're going to lose a lot of money because Syngenta is the one that put atrazine into the atmosphere. We're creating a lot more people who are questioning their sexuality. Can you normalize this for us? Can you get some fool to be your front face? Oh, yeah, I got this idiot called Dylan Mulvaney. He can be exploited. We'll use him. And then voila, overnight, trans is being normalized. Or you start doing Netflix shows with a lot of fat people saying that's a good thing, or you give Academy Awards to normalize fat. That's what they do. So they end up power, profit, and control. Anyway, this is how the few control the many. I hope this is clear. Again, I invite you all to go look at this systems analysis. And it is only our movement and guys like me who understand system science who can take you through this. So go watch that video. Now, why is this relevant today? It's relevant today because guys like me and you and the warrior scholars that we're developing in our movement are coming from here. We're coming from the 8 billion people. And they do not want you to disconnect from them. They always want you to look to them. You see, the key feature is as long as you're looking to the elites to save them, to save yourself, you're a slave. They don't want you to look at a Malcolm X who came from below, or a guy like me. And this is where the conundrum is. And the action that everyone can take is they should really wonder, wow, Shiva for president. Why don't we have a leader like that? Don't I deserve someone like that? How can a booby effing Kennedy, Robert Kennedy Jr., know anything about me? Because all of these people, the swarm, when you really think about it, they know the evil that they're working with. They are really evil people. They know everything that they're doing. They all know about child trafficking. They really do. They're 1 degree of freedom away from their Hollywood folks. They know the workers' exploitation. And when you talk about adrenochrome and this kind of stuff, they're all aware of it. I challenge any of these presidential candidates who are running right now, any of them, if they want to redeem themselves, they should call out all the people that they know that are 1 degree of freedom away, who have exploited children, who've exploited other people. And remember, Harvey Weinstein, who's part of all of these people, I guarantee you, all of these people, or most of these people in these sectors, have had dinner with Harvey Weinstein or know him. 1 to 2 degrees of freedom away. So these people are part of that evil organization that traffics children, takes advantage of children, probably is involved in all of this stuff. But as president, I would be willing to really put together investigative commissions to explore this in a serious way. There are a lot of child trafficking groups have been talking about child trafficking or this exploitation, but they just exist to make movies, right? to start nonprofits, and they just make money off of it. Who is actually going to solve it? Well, I can guarantee you a Hollywood actor coming from them saying, oh, now I'm doing a movie about it. Well, thank you for doing the movie about it, but you made a ton of money among that exploitation. Now you want to make money talking about that exploitation. So I have a problem with that, okay? The reality is because they still have tentacles into that. They may bawl their eyes out and say, oh yeah, I have redemption, I'm now a Christian, whatever. Great, but you made a ton of money off of that. Are you going to give all your money back? All of it, not some of it, because you came from that filth. So they're not going to do that. So the only people that are going to do that is us. Just to give you a perspective on the issue that I'm talking about, nearly 3 years ago, I put out this tweet when I first found out about it. I said, I've gotten thousands of messages from all, and you can look at the date, May 2nd, 2020, all over the world for me to perform a computational systems biology analysis of adrenochrome through cytosol to understand its mechanisms of action. Anyone know about it? Because I was curious about what is this? And then I used our own resources. Again, this was several years ago. I put out another email. I said, this was again in a few days later. I said, there are 800,000 children missing in America every year. As I study this as an MIT PhD, one thing becomes clear. It's time we, the people, demand a full investigation into the use of adrenochrome, how it's manufactured. And then I went on to do an entire video on it. And we're going to be releasing this video again, but this was done back on May 12th. Now, I just want to point out one thing here. You notice the number of retweets and likes I used to get back then, okay? 8,374 retweets, okay? 18,000 likes. Now, compare that to what has happened under this scumbag, Elon Musk. If you go to my Twitter feed now and you look at how many retweets I get now, okay? And I do better content now than I did back then. And I'm much more of a household name than back then. You will see that I get, on a good day, 1,400 retweets. You can look at this, okay? 25,000. Look at this, everyone. This is brought to you by Elon Musk, okay? And I'm a US president candidate. Elon Musk is a dirtbag. He is part of that swarm. He's part of this swarm. Mind you, he lives in Malibu. He lives in Beverly Hills. He lives in Texas. He knows all of these people. So all of these people are interconnected. They're all involved. They're all involved in the exploitation of children, the exploitation of workers. They're all a swarm. So you have to wonder, why is it that I used to get 500,000 views per day when I first got back on Twitter recently? When I started exposing Musk, I'm down to 5,000 views per day. When I used to get 30,000 retweets. And when I was talking about these big issues, because they know that I come from one of you. I don't come from that set of elites. I come from you. I come from over here, the 8 billion people who work their butts off bottoms up and who've experienced exploitation. So they do not want one of us ever leading us. They want one of them leading us. So that's why they got this fool Bobby effing Kennedy. That's why then they got some other brown guy. By the way, recently they've been finding other brown guys to try to replace me, but all of them are interconnected. This guy Vivek is very close friends with Jared Kushner, who's friends with Donald Trump. You see, they're all part of the same existing swarm. And I challenge all of them to talk about all the people that they've hung out with, all the people that they've had dinners with, who are part of this and who exploit children. And if they know anything about adrenochrome's usage, they should. But we will get back to this issue. We're going to release that video I did nearly 3 years ago. We're going to do more research on this. But one of the foundational things the movement for truth, freedom, health is doing, and this is why all of you listening, you better recognize that the only way out of this, there's only one way. And the solution is here, is that you over here have to get involved in truth, freedom, and health. You have no other choice, because we have the knowledge, the community, the education on how to smash the swarm or shatter the swarm, because we have figured out those scientific principles. We have figured out what the swarm is. We understand this entire dynamic. You see, we understand the system. We understand the science of systems. And there's only one way out of this. You have to understand the science of systems. You have to interconnect with other people who are dedicated to this. And guess what? For the first time in human history, just like the Wright brothers first got up their airplane for 12 seconds, the movement exists. The video that we just played are people now getting on the ground, our leaders going neighbor to neighbor. That's a movement. We're not going to rely on them. We don't care if our signs aren't perfect. If someone put truth, freedom, and health, and it was done in, and there was a little bit of ink here. We're not going to work on making the perfect sign. We're going to get on the ground. And that's the future. The future is offline. And you're looking to someone who created a lot of stuff online. But the online medium is owned and controlled by the government and by that swarm. And scumbags like Elon Musk are the face of it. And they're playing such psychological games on people. That's what's really disgusting. And the only way out of it is our movement for truth, freedom, and health. Because when you get involved in this movement, you will understand the dynamic. You will feel empowered, and you will see that you have the tools. But we must shatter the swarm. There's no reason why a small set of people, 10,000 people, should be ruling over 8 billion people. They don't care about your health. They don't care whether you get obese. They don't care if you die early. In fact, in the United States, your children will die younger than you. And I'm the only one who's making that issue front and center. Why? Because they don't care about you. And it is us versus them. And don't let anyone try to sugarcoat and say, well, we need to heal the divide like this moron Kennedy's doing. No, there is a divide, and we need to expand the divide. There is an us versus them. And there's more of us than them. That's why they want to smooth over these contradictions. We're not going to allow that. So what I want to let everyone know is that exploitation is occurring at a deep level. And you have to make a decision whether you want to keep choosing the lesser of two evils. That means you're evil. You choose the lesser of two evils, you're evil. And then you have to ask, well, can we build it? Can we win? Well, we're not going to win if you're asking those kind of dumb questions. We win by people getting off their butts and joining this movement for truth, freedom, health, joining our campaign, because we're the only ones doing this. And we have a clear path to victory, which is you getting empowered, understanding this physics, and raising your consciousness. That's how we shatter the swarm. So for God's sake, go to truthfreedomhealth.com. Get involved. We're going to take some questions today from our people. We'll take about 3 questions, and then we'll go off on social media, and we'll be conducting our town hall. And you want to help with the Shiva for President campaign? Go to shivaforpresident.com. Become a volunteer. If you want to donate, great. But when you donate, I give you lots of books and gifts, so you raise your consciousness. This is not a one-way street, but you got to get involved. Get off your butts. Stop watching these candidates on TV. It's all the same old shit. They're talking about crap that they will not do. You come to our town hall tonight at 8. Our town hall on every issue: healthcare, environment, education, innovation, economy. I give you solutions here and now that you can go do. Very different. We're not giving you empty promises. So this campaign is paradigm changing. And so you have no excuses anymore to say, well, I don't know what to do. Well, you do know what to do. You got to join our campaign. You got to get involved in truthfreedomhealth.com. So John, let's take some questions. Thank you, everyone. We're going to take 3 questions. Go ahead, John. On social media, people can ask a question or here. Any questions? Go ahead, John. Okay. I'll look on social here too. Okay. Right. So someone's saying you cannot go after the regular intelligence agencies. Most of them have already participated in this ritual because they have normalized it into the groups, and not doing so would make them outsiders. So someone's just commenting how tightly knit they are. Tara Fairweather, let's see. What's your question, John? How do you plan on stopping adrenochrome? Well, first of all, Tara, a lot of people don't even know what it is. It's been sort of this fringe thing, right? So the problem is, if you remember, Tara, I was the first scientist to really, in 2019, really talk about the need to look at the issue of go beyond vax and anti-vax and really talk about the immune system. When you talk about something like adrenochrome, the first thing is we need to explain to people, what is it? At the chemistry. So the video we did, Tara, was that conversation, and it got quite a bit of views. So we're going to, number one, do that. The second thing that needs to happen is the only way to stop this is not passing a bill. I'm sure you're not saying that's what we should do, because that's never going to happen. It's not going to get by passing some act. That's not how none of this is going to change. It's going to happen, Tara, by building a movement. And that is the only way. At the heart of adrenochrome, at the heart of child exploitation, is broader exploitation by a few over the many. All of these problems are interconnected. And what you have, unfortunately, is you have these Q people over here talking about this issue or that issue, and you have the flat earthers, and everyone's distracted to all these issues. All of these issues are interconnected into the fact that a few set of people exploit others, as I walk through. And the only way to overcome that is through building a movement. So if you want to stop adrenochrome, you got to build a movement, period. Next, John. Yeah, so many years ago, back in 2012 and 2013, I did the first set of research exposing, again, we have to show how policy affects biology. The policy of the United States government starting in 1970 under the Ford administration was through a policy called substantial equivalence, which basically said you'll use this policy called substantial equivalence, which was done for medical devices to allow GMOs to be allowed by the FDA, okay, the Food and Drug Administration, and basically said if a GMO apple looks like another GMO apple broadly, then you can go out. They didn't really understand the chemical fundamental differences. What I did in our research, and we published 5 papers, we definitively showed that when a plant undergoes genetic engineering, it has less and more of 2 very important chemicals. It has more formaldehyde and less glutathione. Well, if you compared an apple and an apple, they may look alike, but one has less glutathione. For example, glutathione is one of the most important antioxidants. And without that antioxidant, the plant itself is not strong, and you don't get those antioxidants. So we exposed that in 5 papers. And at that time, again, you had people like Booby effing Kennedy and all of his organization and all of those charlatans saying, well, let's work with the government to do something. Government ain't going to do anything, guys. What really needs to happen is that at a deep level, a movement needs to be built to support farmers, because farmers are right now squeezed. They're literally cojones get squeezed, that they have to buy these GMO the pesticides and the GMO food, the GMO seeds. And if you notice, recently there was a major consolidation. Bayer bought Monsanto, and what that really gives them control over is nearly 67% of the seeds in the world. So it's a much deeper issue. The real issue is a monopolization of food that's taking place. Again, these problems are not going to be solved by passing a bill. It's only going to come from building a massive, powerful movement, which involves you have to get off your ass. You have to understand this dynamics, and we have to go local, neighbor to neighbor, and build a revolutionary movement. That's the only way. Do I think calling out Musk will, what do you mean, that I should call him out? Right. So what does he want me to do? Go suck his, you know what? What are you asking me to do? That's not who I am. All right. All right. So if you want to go do that and you want to suck up to him like everyone else is doing, then your speech is going to be contained. So if you want to be a subservient slave, then go ask idiotic questions like that. If you go look at my history, I've always been a fighter. We don't suck up to everyone. When I was 17, 18 years old, we used to hand out little 8.5 by 11 flyers. Now, if you want to help, you should get on the ground with us and hand out flyers. To the extent that we will use Twitter to find people to bring them into our movement, we will continue to do that. Let me just be very clear. Go look at my history on Twitter. I was the first one to expose a backdoor portal to Twitter, long before Fucker Carlson and all these people who are now making money off of that. They weren't there in 2020. We were the first ones to expose election systems integrity. I didn't see you there. I didn't see any of these other guys there. We were the ones who exposed Fauci. And then the grifters came along making money off the exposition. The bottom line is this. When I got back on Twitter in December 2022, we asked Musk, hey, I'll be your CEO. That went viral, 500,000 views per day. Then when I started exposing him, I'm at 5,000 views per day. That's called exploitation. That's called keep the darkie in the cage, because he speaks out. Now, you want me to change my language and suck up to him? I say, fuck you if you want me to do that. I'm not going to do that. All right? We're here to build a movement. You can go suck up to him like all the other people are doing right now with him. And that's why he gives them views. I'm not a slave. He came from South Africa, where 1% of the people control 99%. That's his mentality. That's not America. Thank you. Well, look, Jason, you've been involved in our movement. I don't know if you finished up the course. You got to become a leader. Good question, but it comes down to nuts and bolts. You have to go through leadership. You have to finish it up, and we start one by one. Very nice question, but that question is no different than saying, how do we organize any worker? Okay. What's happened in this world is everyone wants to do, they talk about these big problems, but no one wants to get on the ground and do basic stuff. I'll be in my suit and tie, guys, today, but tomorrow or the day after, I'll be over at the tea station handing out a flyer. That's what we got to do. We got to talk to our neighbors. There's nothing sexy about this. We got to go dig a bunch of ditches. We have to plant a bunch of seeds. That's what needs to be done. But the lifestyle of Hollywood, the celebrity nature of social media has made people think, I'm just going to talk all day on social media. That's the way I make change. No, we've created the infrastructure, Jason. I know you've been around. Get involved, get on the ground. It's great you're asking me these questions, but you've had a lot of time, and I appreciate this question. But like you, there's a lot of people who think this is something theoretical, but we got to get on the ground. And the program we put together is a very scientific program on how we win. There's not a bunch of ways, to win this. It's a razor's edge. It's a very tight rope. You have to have the science. You have to have the engineering. You have to get on the ground. And it's a day-to-day thing. And so I encourage you to recognize it's not the military-industrial complex. It's not any one thing. It's a broad-based movement that has to be founded on the right principles. So, Jason, finish the course, go through leadership if you're interested, and organize people locally. That's what we need to do. And there's no other group doing this. Everyone thinks, well, there's this other group. No, there is no other group. They haven't put all of the pieces together. So thank you. Thanks, John. So everyone on social media, I want to thank all of you for joining us. But the solution involves two parts, and both of them involve you. Number one, you have to become conscious of this dynamics. I'll keep doing the videos to educate you from a systems perspective. Number two, you have to get involved in Truth, Freedom, Health. You have to understand the dynamics so you don't get lost in your own way, in your ego, etc. So you build this movement bottoms up. And for those of you listening, my running for president is really an opportunity to galvanize this movement so people can do something tangible. Because between now and 2024, the reason I'm running is so you don't get distracted. Oh, what about this guy? What about this moron? What about this fool? What about this guy? Forget about what about them. Look at our campaign for president. Look at this movement. We're trying to focus you so you don't get distracted, divided, fat, dumb, and happy. All right, everyone. Thank you. Be well, be the light.